HQ presented by Geico. Get more with Geico. The Niners looking to get more than falling short in the Super Bowl. Going back, dealing with heartbreak has become an unwanted offseason tradition for the Niners. It started with their loss to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl after the 2019 season. In 2021, they fell short in the NFC Championship game against the Rams. 2022, another NFC Championship blow-up loss to the Eagles. And, of course, this past season, the overtime loss to the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58. But each new season, of course, brings new hope. Looking at Super Bowl rematches the following season, the Niners facing the Chiefs. Week 7, October 20th. Circle that one. The Niners will be at home looking to find some success against the team that broke their hearts in February. The NFC West is never easy these days, having produced 4 of the past 6 championships, conference champions. The Niners had a 3-game losing streak during the first half of last season, but still finished atop the NFC West for a second year in a row, making their way to Super Bowl 58, and as we all know, falling short there. So what are the expectations for this season in the NFC West? Looking at the win total set, San Fran has the most. Of course, 11.5 there. The Rams spending the entire month of October at home. That should help, set at 8.5 for them. The Seahawks at 7.5, and the Cards at the bottom of the barrel of expectations at 6.5. Let's welcome in Brady Quinn and Douzable to discuss this NFL schedule. Released in full on Wednesday night. I know everyone was waiting for that. We're going to look at some games that stand out and season win total predictions. So we're going to start with the Niners. So, you know, everyone has high expectations of San Fran, and of course they have a difficult schedule coming their way. They have to face some of their toughest opponents, though, at home, which is always helpful at Levi Stadium. The win total is set at 11.5. Brady, which way are you swaying with them, and is there a game or two that you're looking forward to?
Well, the first one, that's the one I think we're all looking forward to most, just to see if Aaron Rodgers makes it past 4 plays, having to go up against the team that's got the player who was involved with that injury last season now, and Leonard Floyd on the 49ers. But, Lejay, I was looking at the schedule. I actually like it from the 49ers standpoint. The bye comes right smack dab almost in the middle of the season. You love to see that. And I think this schedule is manageable. And Jenny hit on probably the biggest point that I'd make is your most difficult games, you've got them coming to you. And in some cases, coming all the way across the country, different time zones. So I've got the San Francisco 49ers hitting just under that win-loss total at 11 wins. But I think 11.5 is high, man, especially for a division that I think is going to be competitive.
Matter of fact, Brady, it's the highest total preseason win since they've had since 2013. That's the highest, 11.5. I actually have them going over. And when you look at the schedule, right, and you talked about a lot of their good games will be at home. To me, their tough games will be week 14, 15, right? They go back-to-back at Packers, at Bills. That will determine whether they do get over that 11.5 or not. And when you talk about the 49ers, Brady, we know this isn't about the regular season. It's about them winning the Lombardi Trophy, right? We've seen them consistently either go to the Super Bowl or go to the NFC Championship. And, Brady, you know this. Most teams, they have like a run in them, right? To me, this is the last year the 49ers get that run because we know Brock Purdy is due for a deal. He'll probably be one of, if not the highest paid quarterback in NFL history after this season. So when you look at this team, getting up there in age, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, all these guys are getting up there in age. I believe this will be their last true year to make that run. They also have some business to do, right? Because Brandon Ayuk wants a new deal, and he's been very adamant on social media that he's probably not coming around until he gets that deal. Rumors that Deebo Samuel could be traded. They took Ricky Pearsall in the first round. So all this culminates. I think this will be their last year that they have that run because they're going to have to make some changes after this year.
If they lose Ayuk or Samuel, or both, how does that change your prediction?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, to me, if they lose IU, it hurts them more. Now, I know what Deebo Samuel means to that offense, but when you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey who can do similar things than Deebo Samuel, you can split him out wide, you can give him the ball out of the backfield. I think Brandon Ayuk is the true #1 receiver. He's the guy that Brock Purdy really trusts. Let's not forget in that Lions game, when they were down by, I think, 17.5, that was the guy he went to with the ball, was Brandon Ayuk. So I think Brandon Ayuk, they have to get that deal done, and I think they will get that deal done. And this will be their last year that they go for that run to the Super Bowl.
I'm glad you brought up the Lions, Lige, because as we move along here in the West, we have the Rams opening the season against the Lions on Sunday Night Football. Of course, that was a rematch of the dramatic playoff game last year between the two. So Stafford headed back to the Motor City for his second time. When we take a look at the schedule, guys, a couple of things stand out to me here. The Rams Rams will play 6 playoff teams, including the NFC champion 49ers twice in 2024. They'll play the Packers in Week 5, 5th straight season with that matchup. You also get the Jets in Week 16. They have not played since 2020 when the Jets beat the Rams. They, of course, then got out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, which set up the Zach Wilson era, as we know, out in for the Jets, rather. So, Lige, I'll come to you first here. When you look at this schedule, how do you feel about the Rams' outlook going into the season?
Well, hey, I have them going over the 8.5 wins. I actually have them going in 11-6 and maybe competing for the division. And Haley, you brought up a really good point. Week 14 through 16 will be the tale of the story. They play the Buffalo Bills, at 49ers, at Jets. If they go 2-1 or maybe even 3-0 in that span, Brady, I think they can compete for this division. Really love what Sean McVay and Les Snead have really done. Last year, everybody thought it was going to be a rebuild year, Brady. But they've done such a good job of developing young players and getting those rookies to come out and compete as rookies and help that offense. You talk about Puka Nacua. Then you talk about Kobe Turner on defense, who I thought should have won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Byron Young, 8.5 sacks. Now they'll be a year older. And then they refortified the defensive line. Braden Fish, Jared First in the first round. Brady, when you look at this defensive line, it's set for the next 3 or 4 years, right? They're going to have their starters for the next 3 or 4 years. And then Sean McVay wanted to get a little bit more physical, right? Went and got Jonah Jackson from the Lions. They already had a physical run game with Kyron Williams. Then you add Blake Corum to that. I love what the Rams have done. Again, that stretch, week 14 through 16. If they can come through that, they have a real chance to compete for the division.
Questions that I have about this team at this point would just be, they addressed, as Leger just pointed out, the offense, defensive lines. As you're looking through the schedule, I keep thinking to myself, okay, how does this, defensive front match up versus the opponent's offensive line? Because you're always thinking Aaron Donald.
Correct.
Aaron Donald's not there anymore.
That's right.
But to your point, they brought in a bunch of young players who I think will be able to have that impact collectively. But the question becomes, what does the defense look like without Raheem Morris? He's now taken over with the Atlanta Falcons. Chris Shula takes over as defensive coordinator. That could be a question mark. That being said, I think this team will be extremely competitive. I got them winning 10 games, going 10-7, so hitting over on that mark. But again, there could be some growing pains, I think, with some of those pieces on defense, the younger pieces, and then also offensively. How do they settle into an offense that maybe transition to run the football a little bit more with the way they address the offensive line? Blake Corum to go along with my guy Kyron Williams. So a bunch of moving parts, but this will be a really good football team.
Looking at their schedule, too, they won't be playing a single road game in the month of October. They got 3 home games and a Week 6 bye on their schedule, so a lot of time in LA out there. We're going to go to the Seahawks next. New head coach Mike Macdonald. He has a chance to get that defense revamped nice and early. They open with Denver and New England, which means they're probably dealing with 2 rookie quarterbacks. That's helpful. But someone in the scheduling thought it would be okay to give the Seahawks a stretch where they face the Niners, the Bills, the Rams, and the Niners again in a 5-week span. I mean, that's not fair, Brady.
No, it's not. And it's one of the reasons why I've got them going 7-10 this season, at least based on this schedule. It's a difficult schedule for that stretch you pointed out. Even some of the cupcakes, we talk about a team like Seattle going all the way across the country to have to play the New England Patriots. It's difficult for those West Coast teams to do, especially early on. When you're a first-year head coach, and Mike Macdonald, who's trying to set his culture, it's not the easiest thing. But they do have a ton of talent. They addressed, obviously, the trenches, both sides of the ball. I think when you look at what they did in the draft, they've got a ton of talent at the wide receiver position. The addition of Sam Howell is interesting to me for this reason. If there's any quarterback controversy or anything else, I think Sam Howell's the type of guy that could come in and take over this job. But that would mean, obviously, that Geno Smith didn't play well enough during that stretch. So just, again, another team I've got more questions about. I think they're that solidly, to me, 3rd team in the NFC West looking at their schedule.
I actually got them going over, Brady. I got them going 9-8. And Jenny, you brought up a great point. That stretch, week 6-10, will tell the story, right? And when you look at it, it's 49ers at Falcons, Bills, Rams. The good thing for this team, though, Brady, 3 of those 4 are at home. So you would think they'd have the advantage being at home behind the 12s. And another big thing, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb comes over from the University of Washington. We know Jackson Smith-Njigba has had some choice words about his former offensive coordinator not being really used. Well, Ryan Grubb is going to use him. We saw what he did with that 3-headed monster at the University of Washington. So you would think Jackson Smith-Njigba takes a step. The biggest question mark was this defense. That was the Achilles heel of this team. They got the best defensive player in the draft in Byron Murphy to pair with Leonard Williams. Those 2 are going to wreak havoc inside. And we know Mike Macdonald, being a young defensive coordinator that has a bright mind defensively, he gets the most out of his players. He puts them in positions to win and have success. So I can't wait to see how he switches over that defense, put guys in positions to win, because last year they had so much talent, they just didn't play to that talent on defense.
Let us pivot to our final team in the conference, of course, the Arizona Cardinals. This was funny because I was going through our research packets that our awesome research team sends us every day, and there wasn't a lot in terms of what the Cardinals will be dealing with this season, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Here's what stood out to me. They opened the season at the Bills, something that they have, or a team rather, they haven't played since the Hall-Murray game in 2020. It was a 32-30 Cardinals win, where DeAndre Hopkins caught that 42-yard touchdown pass as time expired. That will also be Marvin Harrison Jr.'s debut, so we're excited to see some offensive firepower there. But Lige, in terms of the schedule, I feel like the ceiling for the Cardinals here, it's pretty high. There's not much they can mess up here, maybe? What am I trying to say?
I mean, their win total is 6.5, and Brady, I went back and forth whether I was going to go under and over. I got them winning 7 games, right? I love how Jonathan Gannon had this young team playing last year, but just looking at the schedule that was just up there, they have a tough start. Hey, I know you say they don't have much, but if you look at it, at the Bills, Rams, Lions, the Commanders, which, again, we think they'll be improved, but then the 49ers, Packers, those are all playoff teams they start. They literally could start 1-5 or 0-6. So when you look at this team, I love what Jonathan Gannon did in his staff, especially in the draft. Thought they had a home run draft. Darius Robinson in the first round, Marvin Harrison Jr. You finally get that true number 1 receiver for Kyler Murray. I just think they have a gauntlet to start the season. I think they'll be like the Chicago Bears were this year. They'll take a nice little step, maybe win 6 or 7 games. I think next year will be the Cardinals' year.
They still have to keep building. I mean, this roster is not in a spot where I think it's going to be able to compete with the rest of NFC West. What Jonathan Gannon did last year, the way that coaching staff was able to get the most out of their players, they were one of the more competitive teams, despite the fact that they still had a top 5 pick when it was all said and done. One of the concerns I have is just Marvin Harrison Jr. is an unbelievable talent. That's a lot to put on a rookie's shoulders, though, to have to carry the weight of this offense, at least on the outside, when you look at what else they have, given some of the departures of Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown not being there anymore. So we will see how he settles into the position. Again, Kyler Murray now at the quarterback spot, he gives you a little extra juice with what he's capable of doing. I think the defense will be improved, but improved how much? I've still got them going under the number at 6.5. That's 6 wins. I just think this roster needs a little bit more around it, and they don't have much depth. This is another team that cannot afford to have any sort of injuries. Otherwise, I think they're going to get exposed.
Only up from here. That was the phrase I was looking for. I couldn't find it. They're only up from here, that schedule.
Lige, would you say you're an optimistic person?
I would say so.
Yeah, and
I'm a realist, but yeah, optimistic.
Well, I'm just pointing out, just going over the NFC West. So Niners, Brady took the under, you took the over. The Seahawks, Brady took the under, you took the over. The Cards, Brady took the under, you took the over. The only one you agreed on was the Rams going over.
Well, the interesting thing, JD, is we were talking yesterday and we said that
I've got him going like a game under on it. like 11-6 record for the 49ers. Is that bad?
It's still under.
Yeah. Well, the NFC North to me is probably the strongest NFC. On the NFC side is the strongest division, the NFC North. But I think the NFC West is right behind it. Like, I think it's really close in regards to being the top division in the NFC side. So I can see all these teams going over.
That's fair. I mean, I think the AFC is just so much better than the NFC. So it's hard because when you have some of those crossover games, it's tough to sit there and look at, all right, how do all these teams in the NFC West match up versus the Dolphins? Right? There's a lot of familiarity, in particular with San Francisco, given Mike McDaniel's history there. You go through the Bills, you go through the Jets. Like, those are 3, to me, tough teams that I think if we're ranking them, I pick all 3 of those teams versus everyone but probably the 49ers. If they're facing them square on. So that sort of factors into it, too.
Okay. Well, we got much more coming. We're going to talk a little AFC.
I don't like how I'm being painted right now. I was really optimistic.
Be a little bit more optimistic, Brady.
The thing is, if anyone tracking Leger's picks to make sure all these add up,
they do.
He and Leger, these guys, they think, everyone's going
I'll make sure they add up.
Someone's going to lose these games.
Our producer, James, has been tracking them all. They're on top of it all. As we take a look at the odds to win the NFC West, and of course, it's the Niners that are on top, minus 195 right now.